Man, sometimes I feel like this stuff only happens to me. Seriously. If there were a trophy for most random life of the week, I'd win it hands down. But before I go on, how about you hit that subscribe button? Done? All right. Let's take it step by step. My name's Ethan, I'm 21 years old, and until not too long ago, my life was normal, chill, almost boring, really. I lived with my wife, Emma, in a house that had been in my family for years. It was just the two of us, until her mom and stepdad had some issues with their place and asked if they could stay with us for a while. So suddenly, I was sharing my home with my mother-in-law, Mary, and her husband, Richard, who happened to be Emma's stepdad. Mary and Richard had gotten married about 2 years after Emma's dad passed away, so Richard had already been around for quite some time, solid in his role as the new head of the family. To be honest, things were fine. Richard was that kind of easygoing older guy, quiet, but always helpful. He chipped in with bills, helped out where he could, and every now and then even threw a barbecue. I tried to be the respectful son-in-law, crack jokes at the right time, keep the vibe good. But sometimes, the way he looked at me made me feel, well, off. You know that stare that lingers just half a second too long? The kind that feels like you're being studied. But you can't quite put your finger on why? I brushed it off, figured it was just my imagination. Until it wasn't. One random Saturday, one of those days when all you want is a long shower to wash the world away, I was there under the hot water, eyes closed, singing along like I was the only person alive. Then, I heard the bathroom door creak. I thought it was Emma coming in to tease me, but when I opened my eyes, standing there was Richard, my wife's stepdad. He froze. I froze. For a second, it felt like time had just stopped in the weirdest way. He shook his head quickly, muttered a clumsy apology, but his face didn't look all that innocent. Man, I froze like a wax statue in a museum. All I managed to blurt out was, "Richard, what the hell was that?" He just stood there, silent, his eyes somewhere between lost and focused. Then he shook his head again, stepped back and said, "I thought the guest bathroom was free. My bad, Ethan." He closed the door and left, as if he had just taken a wrong turn at the grocery store. But, man, that wasn't right. That look lingered in a way it shouldn't. I stayed there under the water, brain spinning like a loose bicycle wheel. Was it an accident? Was it on purpose? Was it curiosity? My mind was already writing a whole movie script. At dinner, he acted like nothing had happened, made jokes, small talk, even asked about my job. Emma had no clue what went down. Meanwhile, I could barely swallow my food. Every time my eyes crossed with Richard's, it was like my brain replayed that bathroom scene in slow motion with suspense music. Maybe I was exaggerating? Maybe. But something about it stuck with me. That night, lying in bed with Emma, I tried to bring it up, disguised as a joke. "Babe, your stepdad barged into the bathroom today. He was so shocked. I almost asked for his autograph." She laughed, thought it was funny, said he was just absent-minded. But I couldn't laugh along. My stomach was in knots. Something about that innocent accident didn't sit right. And deep down, I felt it was only the beginning of something much bigger than I could imagine. After that shower incident, the whole house felt different. Not exactly heavy, but tense. Like that strange silence in the air that everyone feels, but nobody talks about. I tried to go on with life as usual, work, dishes, small talk in the kitchen, but every time I ran into Richard, my body set off alarms. And him? He pretended everything was normal, smiled, chatted, told the same old stories about when he worked at a factory out in the sticks. But his eyes stayed the same. Firm, lingering, unsettling. About 3 days later, scene number 2 happened. I was washing the lunch dishes, my back turned to the hallway, when I felt someone walk up. It was him. He stopped at the kitchen doorway, leaned against the frame, arms crossed, just watching me. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "You know, I've noticed something. You take pretty good care of yourself, huh, Ethan? Work out every day?" I forced a laugh, more to break the tension than because I found it funny. I try to keep up, you know? Active body, active mind, I replied, silently begging him to change the subject. But he didn't. He doubled down. That's a good thing. Makes a difference. Then he gave me this half smile and walked away, like he'd just commented on the weather. And there I was, sponge in hand, soap slipping through my fingers, trying to process it. Was that just a compliment? Or was there something else behind it? Was I losing it? Because seriously, that didn't sound like regular father-in-law talk. It sounded wrong. That night, over dinner, the subject was dead. Emma talked excitedly about the course she was about to start. My mother-in-law chatted about a new show she was watching. And Richard? He sat at the end of the table, eating in silence, occasionally glancing at me over his glass of juice. I avoided looking back, but I could feel it. Like I was in a reality show, only without the cameras. And the worst part? I felt strange. Not just about the situation, about myself. Because a very, very small part of me didn't quite know how to feel about all this. It wasn't desire. It was curiosity mixed with unease, with a drop of anger for even being in this situation. It wasn't simple. And it definitely wasn't right. That night, lying in bed next to Emma as she drifted off, I stared at the ceiling for nearly an hour. The only question spinning in my head was, am I overreacting? Or is there really something seriously wrong going on here? But before I could find an answer, the universe, or Richard, was about to hand me more than I ever wanted to discover. Saturday started off ordinary. I woke up early, dropped Emma off at her prep course, and came back home planning to spend the day gaming without interruptions. Fresh coffee, toasted bread, headphones on, my little bubble of peace. But peace didn't last. The knock came at the door. Ethan? It was Richard. Emma left a shopping list for the grocery store. Want me to give you a ride? He seemed to enjoy these chances where we'd end up alone together. Emma wasn't home. My mother-in-law had gone to visit her sister. I could have said no, but some part of me wanted to see just how far this would go. Sure, I said, setting down the controller. We got in the car, the radio playing cheesy love songs from the 80s. Richard hummed along, and I had to hold back a laugh. At the store, everything was normal. Onions, milk, tampons, until we hit the dairy aisle. Out of nowhere, he turned to me and said, "You know, if life had gone differently, maybe we would have met another way." I froze, staring down the aisle, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. Richard smiled like he'd just told me his favorite sports team. "Relax, I'm just kidding," he added, grabbing cream cheese like nothing had happened. But it wasn't a joke. That was direct. No dodging. That was the moment when the maybe turned into "this is really happening." And the worst part? He said it so calmly it knocked me off balance. The ride back was heavy with silence. Only the radio filled the air, blasting some old ballad that made things feel even more surreal. When we got home, he carried the bags in like a gentleman, then gave me one last look at the door. "Relax, Ethan. I just wanted to be honest." And then he walked inside. I stood there with the groceries in my hands, my heart pounding harder than after leg day at the gym. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. That night, lying next to Emma felt like lying in a minefield. I didn't doubt anymore what Richard wanted. The real question now was, what the hell was I going to do about it? And even worse, why was there a part of me that couldn't bring itself to hate him for saying it? I couldn't explain it. Honestly, it was like, after that comment in the grocery store, an invisible line had been crossed. Richard didn't need to hide anymore. And me? I couldn't pretend I wasn't feeling something too. Life at home changed after that. Not in any loud, obvious way, but in the details. His stares lasted longer. His touches grew more subtle. Like when he brushed past me in the kitchen, too close not to notice, or when he said goodnight with his voice pitched just a little too low, too close, too intentional. The house turned into a field of tension. And me? I couldn't figure out what I was feeling anymore. Emma carried on with her normal life. My mother-in-law stayed busy caring for her sick aunt. Emma and Mary had been spending more time out of town caring for Aunt Aurora, whose health had been getting worse, and I was stuck between I can't and I need to understand what's going on here. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the house was empty. Emma had gone to a friend's, Mary was out as well. I'd just stepped out of the shower and went to the laundry room to grab a shirt off the line. When I opened the door, Richard was there, leaning against the counter, sipping coffee. We locked eyes. Just that. Eye to eye, in silence that said more than any sentence could. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to me, Ethan?" he asked, voice steady. "Richard, we shouldn't even be having this conversation." I started, but he cut me off. "But we are, and it's not new." I stepped back. He stepped forward, twice as fast. Close now. Too close. The silence between us rang loud. "Tell me you've never thought about it. Not even for a second." I stayed quiet, because I had thought about it. Many times. Since that day in the kitchen, since the grocery store. Thought, dreamed, hated myself for it. But I had. He leaned in slowly, as if waiting for an answer, and in a rush I didn't understand myself. Our faces drew close. It was quick, charged with confusion and all the words we'd never said, like we were just too tired of pretending. Right there, in the laundry room, surrounded by the smell of detergent, I crossed a line I never thought I would. For the first time, I didn't think, I just lived the moment. It was strange, intense. I was at war with myself. I pulled away before it went too far, but I knew from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same again. When I walked out, Richard was still leaning against the counter, eyes closed, chest rising and falling hard. "This shouldn't have happened," I said. "But it did," he replied, without moving. And deep down, I knew. This was only the beginning. Days went by. Then one afternoon the house felt heavier, filled with a different kind of tension. Emma and her mom had left early. The aunt in the countryside had gotten worse, and they were going to spend the week helping out. Before she left, Emma gave me a rushed kiss and said she loved me. I said it back, or tried to. My voice came out low, guilty, trembling inside. And there I was, alone with Richard. Or better said, alone with the chaos we had already started building together. The first half of the day was silence. Him on the couch, me in the bedroom. Avoiding. Pretending. But every step through the house, every glance in the hallway, it was like our bodies were screaming what our mouths refused to say. By late afternoon, the rain started pounding hard, the sky closing in until the house felt even smaller, more suffocating. I went to the laundry room to keep busy, folding clothes, pretending I was still the man of solid morals. Then Richard showed up at the door. "You trying to run from me or from your conscience?" he asked with that mocking tone that always threw me off. "Both," I shot back without looking. He closed the door behind him. The sound echoed, heavier than it should have been, or maybe it was just my heart pounding too loud. "I tried to sleep last night, Ethan, but you wouldn't leave my head." "Richard, we can't." "It's way past time to stop pretending." He came closer, until he was right by the counter, so near I could smell the mix of laundry soap and his cologne. "I've thought about you since the very first day I walked into this house," he whispered. And this time, I didn't back away. I didn't fight it. It happened like it had been written long before, like a promise finally breaking through. No words. Just the weight of the moment, loaded with everything that had been trapped inside. The space between us disappeared. No walls, no shields. It was as if we'd already done this 1,000 times. His eyes locked on mine without fear. And in that moment, we let go of everything that was supposed to be right. It was a silent confession of a feeling we had both hidden for far too long. Afterward, he held me. We stayed there, caught in the closeness and the silence that said everything. "This is insane, isn't it?" I whispered. "Yeah," he breathed. "But it's the only thing that's made sense to me in a long time." I closed my eyes. In the middle of the mistake, in the middle of the doubt, there was a warmth in my chest I couldn't ignore anymore. From that day forward, we weren't just Ethan and Richard. We were a secret. We were a sin. We were something I still didn't know how to name. The next morning, I woke up with the sun slipping through the blinds. For a split second, I forgot everything. Forgot Emma. Forgot the guilt. Forgot that what we were doing was wrong. All I felt was peace. The kind of silence that only exists when you're exactly where you want to be. "Leaving already?" he murmured, voice still hoarse. "No. I'm just not used to waking up like this," I admitted. "Me neither. But I like it." We stayed there for a while longer, just listening to the faint sounds of the street outside. The house was empty, and for the first time since this all began, we didn't have to hide. Emma and her mom would be gone for another 5 days. And for those 5 days, the house was ours. The secret was ours. We had breakfast together, really together. Toast, juice, laughter. He poured me coffee like it was the most normal thing in the world, and I accepted it as if it was. He walked around the house in shorts and a t-shirt, turning on the radio to some cheesy old station. I teased him. He called me a brat, and we laughed. It was light. Too light for something that should have been crushing me with guilt. "Want to hit the store with me?" he asked late that morning. "Only if we're getting more of that wine you left open yesterday." Was the wine bitter, or was it just you who didn't know how to save it? Clown. We took the car and went. Like a couple. Like two men living a hidden everyday life. We joked in the canned goods aisle, argued over which rice brand was better, and at the checkout, he nudged me and whispered, "The cashier thinks we're husbands. And is she wrong?" We looked at each other and laughed, and inside, it hurt. Because no matter how real it felt, it wasn't. It was an interlude, a detour, a dream with an expiration date. In the afternoon, he made lunch, an improvised barbecue on the electric grill. He turned the music up in the living room, put on a classic samba playlist, and pulled me into a dance right there in the kitchen. "Are you out of your mind?" I asked, trying not to laugh. "Yeah, I've been out of my mind for you for a long time." We danced, clumsy, laughing, hearts pounding together. After lunch, we lay on the couch, and he pulled me onto his lap. We watched a movie, shared little touches, and I swear, if anyone had looked through the window, they would have thought we were just a real couple. No drama, no conflict. Just two men loving each other the way the world wouldn't let them. That night, we showered quietly, no words needed. Only silence and care filling the space. In bed, before falling asleep, he whispered, "I'm scared of when they come back." "Me too. But I'm trying to live while we still can. Do you think this is just some beginner's rush?" "Beginner's rush doesn't look at me the way you do, Richard." He stayed quiet, kissed my forehead, turned off the light, held me close. And right there, beside the man I never imagined I could love, I realized we had crossed a line, and going back might no longer be possible. Time passed, and Richard and I kept our affair hidden. But you know what they say? If the devil has a sidekick, it's a woman's intuition. One Wednesday, Emma told me she was heading out of town to visit her aunt. It had been a month since that week alone when everything started between me and Richard. My mother-in-law had come back for a few days here and there, but she practically lived with her sister now. With Emma leaving early that morning, Richard and I were thrilled to have the house to ourselves again. That day felt like a scene straight out of a romantic movie. We spent it as if we really were husbands. Breakfast together, an improvised lunch, a nap on the couch. The radio played softly, a gentle samba filling the background, the smell of garlic bread still hanging in the air from our late lunch. We slept, laughed, and spent the next day the same way, just the two of us, enjoying every moment. But the worst was yet to come. We were sitting on the couch, facing each other, our faces close enough to feel each other's breath. He stroked my chin with his rough fingers, and I had already abandoned any notion of right or wrong. "I never thought I'd feel this for anyone. Especially for you," he whispered. "Me neither. But I do. And I don't want to pretend it isn't happening." He smiled. That smile I already knew meant surrender. He leaned his forehead against mine and kissed me. A kiss full of everything we had kept buried for too long. And for a moment, I swear, nothing else existed but him. That's when we heard it. Clack, the doorknob turning, the door opening, the sound of a bag hitting the floor. and the voice that froze every muscle in my body. "Ethan?" I pulled away from Richard like I'd been electrocuted. He froze too. We both turned at the same time. And there she was, Emma, standing in the middle of the living room, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, breathing short and shallow. For a few seconds, the world stopped spinning. "Emma?" I tried to say something, anything, but no words came out. She blinked a few times, like she was trying to erase the scene from her mind, as if what she'd seen was impossible to process. What the hell is going on here? Richard stood first, hands raised like a man caught in a robbery. "Emma, sweetheart. It's not what—" "Shut up, Richard," she snapped, her voice breaking. You were with him?" I wanted to go to her, explain, hold her hand, tell her none of this had been planned. But my legs wouldn't move, and my words? Gone. "You're my husband, Ethan, my husband. I trusted you," she cried, anger and heartbreak flooding together. "And you, Richard, you were like a father to me. How could you?" "I didn't mean for this to happen," I managed to whisper. "It just happened. You two deserve each other," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "Go ahead, be together. Burn this family to the ground." She grabbed her bag, turned, and slammed the door with such force the sound echoed through the whole house. The silence that followed was unbearable. Richard sat on the edge of the couch, hands over his face, looking older, weaker. And me? I stood frozen in the middle of the living room, not knowing what to do with my hands, my body, my shame. "She came back early," he said as if trying to blame fate. "She saw everything, Richard." "I know." We stared at each other. But nothing could fix it. No hug could soothe it. The truth was out.
And with it came the bill for everything we had lived in secret. The hours after that were a blur. Emma didn't come back that night. She didn't call. She didn't text. I didn't sleep. I just sat at the edge of the bed, staring at nothing, trying to figure out when exactly my life had turned into such a mess. Richard? He spent the night locked in the guest room, silent. For the first time, the house that once pulsed with tension and secrecy was filled only with guilt and emptiness.
The next morning, Mary showed up at the door with her suitcase in hand, and the look of someone who already knew. "What did you two do?" she asked, her voice calm but cutting like a blade. Richard came into the living room, glanced at her, then lowered his eyes, his beard unshaven, his shoulders slumped. "Mary, I screwed up, bad. But I love you. I still love you. Please, just give me a chance to fix this." She didn't answer right away. She just took a deep breath, holding back the tears threatening to fall, and finally said, "What you did wasn't just against me. It was against my daughter. You destroyed 2 lives." Richard tried to take her hand, but she pulled back. No yelling, no drama, just firm words. "You need to choose. Right now." He looked at me. I stood there frozen, chest burning, palms sweating. I wanted to run, scream, beg him not to leave me. But deep down, I already knew. The choice had been made. "I'm sorry, Ethan," he whispered, voice breaking. "But I have to try to save my marriage. I can't throw it all away." I nodded slowly. I didn't cry. Not then. I just took a step back, as if that could shield me from the blow. That same afternoon, he and Mary packed up. They said they were heading to the countryside, to Aunt Aurora's house. Emma was already there. Mary wanted distance, silence, and time. Richard wanted the same. Before leaving, he looked at me one last time. "What we had was real, Ethan. But sometimes, real isn't enough." And then he left. The door shut with a hollow sound. And what was left behind was a void I had no idea how to fill. The days that followed were like walking through fog. I wandered around the house like a ghost. Every corner reminded me of him. His scent lingered on the pillow, in the shirts he'd left behind, in the laundry room where everything began. There was no escaping it, no pretending it had just been a phase. I was in love with Richard. And now, I was alone. Emma never answered my messages. Mary blocked me on WhatsApp. And Richard, he vanished, as if he had never existed. The walls of the house started to suffocate me. The bed was cold, the kitchen too quiet. The laundry room? I avoided it completely. That's when I realized, it isn't the scandal that destroys us. It's the silence that comes after. And the worst part? When love ends. But the feeling doesn't go away with it. Time crawled. At first, every minute felt like a ton. The house was empty. So was I. The first week was all choked up sobs. The second, anger. Then came the silence phase. That hollow space left when you're too tired to keep feeling. I sold the couch, donated the clothes he'd forgotten, took the pictures down from the shelves, painted the living room wall. But no external change fixed what was broken inside. For months, I tried to understand what I had lived. Was it love? Was it loneliness? Or just desire, wrapped in the adrenaline of something forbidden? The truth was, I loved Richard. I did. And when you love someone who chooses another life, you don't just grieve losing them. You grieve losing yourself in the process. I started therapy, changed jobs, began again, slowly, brick by brick. Between university reports, I finally forced myself to finish, and lonely Sunday nights with pizza. Something unexpected happened. The love that once hurt turned into memory. It still ached sometimes, sure, but it hurt with less anger and with more longing for myself. A year and a half went by. It was on a random afternoon at a cafe near work that he appeared. James, perfectly combed gray hair, neatly trimmed beard, linen shirt, and the kind of smile that only someone who has suffered but still chooses to smile can have. He asked me for a dessert recommendation at the counter. I suggested the brownie. He ordered 2. One for me and one for the guy who just saved my afternoon, he said. We laughed, talked for half an hour, then an hour, then many more. James was 55, an architect, divorced, father of 2 grown kids, and he carried a serenity that completely disarmed me. With him, there was no tension, no secrets, no adrenaline. Just peace. We started seeing each other. Movies, wine, silly laughs. He listened to me like every word mattered. He looked at me like I was handsome even when I had dark circles under my eyes and wore a beat-up hoodie. And one Saturday afternoon, under a blanket with the sound of rain tapping against the window, he looked at me and said, I don't want to hide you, or hide myself. Life's too short to live behind a curtain. I took a deep breath. It hit me straight in the chest. Because Richard had chosen to hide, to live in the shadows, with Mary, in silence. And me? I chose freedom. I never saw Richard again, never looked for him. But I heard he still lives with Mary, that they take care of Aunt Aurora, fixed up the house, and live a simple life. Pretending every day that they're nothing more than that. Just a traditional couple, with Sunday lunches and TV at night. And that's fine. Maybe that's his way of surviving. But mine wasn't anymore. Today, when James runs his hand through my hair while I'm reading in his lap, I finally understand. It wasn't Richard I loved. It was the idea of what I wanted to feel. With James, I don't have to imagine anymore. I just live it. Love, when it's right, doesn't hurt. It doesn't weigh you down. It doesn't suffocate. It simply stays. And me? I stayed too. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. This story still aches in some hidden corners of me, but it also taught me what it means to truly love. With lightness, with courage, with honesty. And now I want to know about you. Have you ever lived a love that had to stay hidden? Or had to let go of someone just to find yourself? Share it with me in the comments. Let's build this space together. For those who loved in silence, for those still afraid, and for those like me, who are learning to love without disappearing. And if this story touched you in any way, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications. There's still a lot of life and a lot of truth coming your way.